Gas is currently costing as much as 5 times as it did a year ago. Russia provides more than a third of Europe's gas, and some are accusing it of restricting supplies. Well, President Putin has hit back at that.
You're talking about accusations that Russia uses energy sources as a weapon. That is complete nonsense. It's rubbish. It's politically motivated, non-justified blather. Where do we use this weapon? In which conflicts do we participate? And as for the economy, that is absolutely out of the question. Even in the toughest periods of the Cold War, Russia fulfilled its contractual obligations in supplying gas to Europe.
Well, President Putin was responding to this comment from Joe Biden's national security advisor in an interview with the BBC last week.
We've long been concerned about Russia using energy as a tool of coercion and a political weapon. We've seen it happen before, and we could see it happen again.
Well, let's take a look at why energy prices are high in Europe. Broadly, there's a global squeeze on the supply of natural gas. A cold winter in Europe last year meant stored gas levels are now much lower than normal. There was also increased demand from Asia, especially from China, for liquefied natural gas. So that's eaten into supply too. And this is the result on gas prices. You can see them going up. This is hitting fuel bills for both households and companies across Europe. And some are arguing Russia could do more to help.
Russia could have been and still can be more helpful. Our numbers show that Russia can easily increase the gas it is sending to Europe by 15%.
Well, the accusation that Russia is restricting supply connects to the state-backed energy company Gazprom and a pipeline to the European Union called Nord Stream 2. That's a pipeline that's been completed but hasn't been switched on yet. Here's one energy analyst.
Gazprom can supply more gas to Europe, but refuses to do that, saying that we will do that if you accept Gazprom's terms of handling Nord Stream 2. That's very simple. This is pure blackmail.
Now, there's already a pipeline in place between Russia and the European Union. It's called Nord Stream 1. Nord Stream 2 runs alongside it through the Baltic Sea to Germany. It would, when it's switched on, double the supply to Europe. It's waiting approval, though, from European regulators. And while that wait's going on, Russia has consistently denied throttling supplies in order to get Nord Stream 2 the go-ahead. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister has been talking about this issue with the BBC's Stephen Sackur on our Hard Talk programme.
You could also have pointed to the words of Deputy Prime Minister and Energy Minister Alexander Novak, who said very recently that in his view, European certification of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline so that it could actually be used, because we know it's been built, but it isn't being used yet. He said certification for use would definitely cool soaring European gas prices. Now, to many in Europe, that sounds a little bit like an implicit threat that if they don't do what you want with regard to Nord Stream 2, then there could be problems ahead this winter.
It means, Mr. Sackur, that your preferred option would be not to certify so that prices soar further. I will say that we are talking here on a market that is kept in the hands of those who, through spelling out policies and approaches, determine what will happen in the next few weeks and months. We would prefer to have here a bear market. Russia is about bears. Now it's not about bullies, it's about bears. This is where we work towards for.
Let's talk to Tom Marzek-Manzer, an analyst at the energy consultancy ICIS. Tom, thanks for joining us on Outside Source. Do you think this is a problem that Russia could solve?
It certainly is a problem that Russia can solve, and indeed that the entire gas-traded market is looking to Russia to solve it. There is certainly less gas coming into Northwest Europe than pre-COVID times, and the market is really waiting any day now for some sort of development that we can see that the volumes tick up, whether they come through Ukraine, Poland, or the newly completed but not commissioned Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
And I was mentioning the extra demand because of a cold winter and the extra demand from Asia, but where does the pandemic fit into this? How does demand connect with that?
Well, I think it's about the fact that we've bounced back globally so quickly, and we drew. So that means the economies of particularly in Asia are significantly stronger and more energy intensive and energy hungry than they were, and than anyone had really expected. So we've had that coupled with, as you mentioned, some cold weather both in Russia and in Europe at the end of the previous winter, which have meant these storage sites within the European Union and within the UK are much lower than they need to be at this time of the year.
And can you help us put the supply of gas from Russia to Europe in the context of the overall supply? Do you think Europe's too reliant on the Russians?
Well, we do consume a lot of Russian gas, but I suppose the point is that where else would we get it from? At the moment, the two sources of flexible supply to Europe is either additional Russian gas or global LNG. And we've seen over this summer that liquefied natural gas is being bought by the Asian market. They're consistently outcompeting European prices to attract any spare cargoes that may come out of Qatar or America. So we're not really left with many other options in the short term.
And bearing in mind everything you said in that last answer, I know that the European regulators haven't approved Nord Stream 2 yet, but is it really possible to see any other outcome than that eventually being switched on?
Well, I think ultimately it will get switched on. You know, the first half of the pipe is, as you mentioned, is ready to go basically. But also there is, as I said earlier, there is actually a lot of spare capacity in the pipelines that go through Poland and Ukraine that's being underutilized at the moment. And really, before Nord Stream switched on, we'd like to see those pipelines increase their flow, hopefully from the beginning of November, really. And then we could seriously see a drastic fall in the price of the wholesale price in Europe, the benchmark TTF.
And on that final point, there will be people watching us in the UK and across Europe thinking, is there any respite coming? It sounds like there might be in the medium term.
Yeah, I think if we see some signals in the next week that these pipelines will get used more than they already are, then that will bring down the wholesale price. The volumes will then arrive a few weeks later at the beginning of November, ideally, hopefully, and then there really would be some respite for consumers, be they industrial consumers or household consumers.